Hello, welcome to Unisport Learning Made Easy. In today's video, we are going to talk about the big leap of the animals when the animals moved out from the aquatic environment and started living on the terrestrial land. The evolutionary transition from the water to the land occurred not only in the weeks but over the millions of the years. A lengthy series of the alteration cumulatively fitted the vertebrate body plan for the life on the land. The origin of the land vertebrates is no less a remarkable feature for this fact, a feature that would have a poor chance of succeeding today because well-established terrestrial competitors would exclude poorly adapted transitional forms. Only the amphibians are the living species displaying their transition from the water to land even in one life cycle. Mating frogs produce masses of the eggs in water, which will hatch as a limbless, gills-breathing fish like tadpoles. Those tadpoles will continue development, and once they are ready to jump out of the water, they develop their eyelids and the hind limbs and forelimbs, and they start living as a frogs. So this is a very quick snapshot of how the evolution of the tetrapods happened in the early Devonian periods. Movement from the water to the land is perhaps the most dramatic event in the animal's evolution because it involves invasion of a physically hazardous habitat. Life originated in water. Animals are mostly in water in their composition, and all cellular activities occurs in water. But still the animal decided, or the nature decided, to evolve the animals to become adapted to the terrestrial environment. So the organisms invaded land carrying all their watery composition with them. Although the vascular plants, the permanent snails and tracheate arthropods have made this transition much earlier than did the tetrapods or vertebrates, and thus generally provided the food supply and has already established an ecosystem where this recently evolved tetrapod can come out and start living. So the significance of this move included opened the way and the channel for the newly evolved animals to inhabit a variety of the different habitats, starting from the forest to the deserts to the trees, or in the air, or in the burrows, in the sandy sediments, or in the plains or mountains, and also provided the variety of the new foods available for them. And also they are facing the change in the media which requires the certain adaptations in the body plan of those animals and also help them in surviving better, because in the terrestrial environment they have a variety of the different niches where they can hide their eggs or where they can hide themselves, and that environment is more supportive towards the defensive strategies of the animals as compared to the aquatic environment. But this big leap from the water to the land comes with the biggest challenges of the animal's life. These are the four challenges where they have to deal with the variable oxygen concentration on the land, and also the change in the medium density where the water in the aquatic habitats were more dense and hence was supporting animals' weight against gravity. But on the terrestrial land, the animal has to lift its own body weight against the gravity, and their air is less viscous and hence providing almost no support to their body weight. And then another important challenge which these animals had to face was the thermo and osmoregulation. And finally, the diversity of the habitats is another challenge. The oxygen concentration varies between the aquatic and the terrestrial environment. Oxygen is at least 20 times more abundant in air than in the water, and it can diffuse much more rapidly through the air than through the water. Consequently, terrestrial animals can obtain oxygen far more easily than the aquatic ones once they possess lungs and the other appropriately adapted respiratory structures. Consequently, terrestrial animals can obtain oxygen far more easily than aquatic ones once they possess all the required equipment such as lungs and other attachments. Air, however, has approximately 1000 times less bounciness and density than the water, and is approximately 50 times less viscous. Hence, it provides at least no support. Hence, it provides almost no support to the animal's body weight against gravity. Hence, the animal has to put all the effort using its own energy and muscle and skeletal supports. Thirdly, that the terrestrial environment is uh, more fluctuant Air fluctuates in temperature more readily and more rapidly than does the water, and hence the terrestrial environments experience harsh and unpredictable cycles of freezing, warming, thawing, drying, and flooding. Hence, the terrestrial animals require behavioral and physiological strategies to protect themselves for the thermal extremes. Similarly, that animals, when they move out of the water, they face the problem of desiccation. For that, they must have an integument which provides a barrier sufficient enough to conserve the internal water of the animal's body. And finally, the variety of the habitat is another challenge where the animals can opt to live in the different habitats, including the grasslands or deserts, the mountains, ocean islands, or the polar regions. But each region requires a specific adjustment into their behavior and physiology. So this is another biggest challenge where the animals has to work with. About 400 million years ago, bony fishes had diversified to include many freshwater forms. An important combination of the characteristics that evolved originally in aquatic habitats now give its possessors some ability to explore the terrestrial habitat. Alright students, the big jump from the water to the land when the animals evolved from the fish to the amphibians does not happen in the days, and all the adjustment in the body plans does not happen once the animals came out of the water. All of these changes in their body form started to appear long ago when they were still fish and they were not evolving to become a terrestrial animals. The one of the two, some of the important Some of these important adjustments include the presence of the air-filled cavity within the body of the fish, which we know that is the swim bladder, which has the ability to produce and store different types of the gases within it. Later on, when the animals evolved to become the terrestrial tetrapods like amphibians or reptiles, these swim bladders become the lungs, and there are sufficient evidence that both lungs and the swim bladders are uh, as homologous for their origin. And secondly, the air-filled cavities or these swim bladders were connected towards the internal nares, a pair of internal nares using the tubes. And these internal nares, which were originally evolved in the animals for the chemoreception, has now become the part of the respiratory system. And hence, using these internal nares connected to the lungs with the windpipe, the animals are able to absorb. The animals are able to respire air into their lungs, from where they can do the gaseous transfers and gaseous exchange for respiratory purposes. The second main feature was the presence of a bony endoskeleton with the limb girdles present in those sarcopterygiae fish, and the readjustment of the muscles and production of the muscles along these limb girdles, which enabled the animals to use their fins as legs. And once they evolved further to become terrestrial tetrapods, these limbs got more stronger, has got more attachment of the stronger muscles, which enabled the animal to lift the body weight against the gravity. Another feature that some of those early tetrapods which have made this transition from the water to land, such as the amphibians, they have highly vascularization of their skins once they were in water. So this is to ensure that if their primitively developed lungs are unable to support the animal body for the respiration, the respiration and their metabolic needs of the oxygen can be supplemented by the cutaneous respiration. Alright, so that was all about the big jump of the animals from aquatic habitats to the terrestrial habitats and the start of the amphibian or the origin of the amphibian. If you have any question, leave your questions in the comments and I would be happy to respond to your comments. And if you haven't subscribed our channel, please do so.